You're looking at America's next supervillain.
Holy shit. I'm not gonna dump a body for you.
I know you're not.
Hi, Parker, we're not taking my car. He's your dead friend.
We're not taking my car, I just got a detail.
Hello and welcome. My name is Amanda Salazar. I'm the head of programming and acquisitions with Argo, and I am so excited to be in conversation today with a very special guest. So please join me in welcoming the director of Bad Assistant, Kyle Cogan. Kyle, welcome.
Hi, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing very well. Thank you for joining us today. Before we kind of get into the nuts and bolts of Bad Assistant, I would love to talk to you about your career in filmmaking. You are definitely a multi-hyphenate, director, producer, editor. I think I could name a few more, so feel free to fill in there for our audiences because I don't want to miss anything. So I would love to know kind of how and when you kind of gravitated towards filmmaking.
Wow. Okay. I gravitated towards filmmaking in high school, and it kind of came off of there was this moment I watched this film, Alpha Dog, which is like, it's a good movie, but it's nothing to write home about. I was like 16 or something, and me and my girlfriend at the time, I saw the movie, and as silly as it sounds, like I came home and my dad was like, "How was the movie?" And at this point, I had no like film ambition or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, it was great. I really liked it. But there was like an authority figure that like had all these tattoos. And I was like, if you're trying to portray him that way, like, why does he have these tattoos? Like, it just felt off. And I was like going on this huge rant. And my dad was just like sitting there, like, watching TV. And he's like, if you can do better, why don't you do it yourself? And I was like, all right, I will. And then here I am. So 15 years later. Not that I could do better than Alpha Dog. I still think that's a quality movie, but I think there's something about young and naive and like, I can do better. And it's like, and then I think the more you do it, you're like, oh no, that's really good. Like problems come up and like, it is, the films kind of take the shapes of themselves and you just got to kind of embrace whatever that is. But that was kind of my very brief, very brief like moment that I remember. I was like, yeah, let's do it. So.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. That's exactly what I think all of us, like, we're connected by the moving image or cinema or, film or however, what is that thing that got you into it? I love that story. I mean, we all have it. But then I want to take that a step further. So you get kind of challenged, okay, do it yourself. But then like, what's the next step for you? Did you go to film school for this? It's like kind of just start making work on your own? Because again, like I said, you being kind of having credits that are varied, beyond just directing for the film that we're going to talk about. I just wanted to know how you kind of collected those skill sets, so to speak.
Sure. In high school, I played football. I got hurt, and it was a big, like, kind of like a traumatic moment for me where I needed to like do something with my time because that was where all my focus was, right? Mm-hmm. And instead of like, I first got paid to like film the games for coaching tape. And then from there, I was just like, I need to do something different. And I made a documentary like with there was like a little like digital, it was all hard. It was honestly pretty advanced for its time. A little hard, like a whole fully digital camera that had a little hard drive built into it in like 2008. And I essentially made this like big documentary, pretty much music video, like highlight reel of my fellow teammates. And then from there, went to school at Columbia College. I went to school for television and with a minor in motion graphics, just because still very obsessed with like sports and pro wrestling and all that stuff. So there was like this, like, oh, I can film stuff and do graphics and still involve sports and all that. But I think there was a really unique time when I was in college where it was a big shift from SD to HD and from film to digital, as far as film goes as well. So I was in the TV department, but I think things really kind of to shift over like really rapidly, where every year was like, oh, we're using this program or we're using this camera. And like, so by the time when I was a freshman at Columbia to the time I was a senior, like, the whole landscape kind of changed in those 4 years. And I look at that as like being pretty fortunate of just like getting your hands on new stuff pretty young. And I worked at the TV department at Columbia with Paige, and we would film little sketches and things like that. And just having access to all the gear and stuff was really important. But I would say nowadays, like having that access is like you have it right here if you really need to, like to make something great.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, that's kind of, sorry, I'm kind of just going off there, but.
No, that's to me, like I said, you don't no apologies. I think again, anyone's introduction into this field, it's it's varied for everyone. So you then just kind of mentioned Paige, kind of creator of Bad Assistant, and is that essentially where you met and kind of started collaborating at that point, which then brought you to Bad Assistant? Or like, when did you first get introduced to Paige?
Yeah, we were both working this thing called Manifest in college. We didn't know each other at the time, and it was essentially like I was in the TV department. I think she was in acting, or maybe she just got into the TV department. I'm not sure. But they paired us up where like we were running around like doing interviews of like it's like the big festival, almost a parade around of like a celebration of everyone's work, and we were documenting it, but live. Editing it would go out like the same day, so we shoot it in the morning.
Okay.
And Paige and I just had this very right away, off the cuff, good working relationship where she took everybody else was kind of doing these like mundane interviews, like tell me about your painting and stuff, whatever. And we were like, I remember the one memory that sticks out is like Paige decided to interview somebody through a window, like at a restaurant. And they couldn't hear her, and it was just it turned into a comedy bit. And it's just like I was like, oh, she's crazy in a good way. And that was kind of the beginning there. And we did like a sketch comedy show that the school would air. We did like 4 episodes of that, like 10-minute, like little webisodes. And then for our senior year, we did basically our thesis project. Me, Paige, and this woman Lynn, we ran the like end of the school year project, which was called Freak Out, which was like a live Saturday Night Live, essentially.
Okay.
But in college, we had a live studio audience, and but at the time we incorporated so Paige brought all her comedy chops to the table, and I brought kind of like my technical know-how, and we had 2 stages on each side and a rear projection screen in the middle that would kind of change like as a virtual set, which nowadays isn't that impressive, but 10 years ago or whatever it is now, is like, that's pretty crazy that we were doing that. And we had like an under the water sketch for like Little Mermaid, and like talking about like the BP oil spill and things like that. And yeah, it was wild times for sure.
I love that. I mean, so that then takes me, I want to talk about Bad Assistant, because it sounds like it's kind of a natural progression of your relationship, to your point of you mentioning Paige's kind of comedic skills, and she now has the script starring her with her real life boss, and this kind of dynamic, and that she's working off of, and you're kind of set to direct. So can you talk about like maybe just the beginning of when Paige approached you and was like, I want you to direct this film, or kind of talk about that collaborative nature of then kind of working again like outside of school and in this film in particular?
Sure. So after college, we all kind of went our separate ways. She came out to LA. I moved to Philadelphia to go work for the NFL. She came out here to do various acting stuff and assistant stuff to various celebrities. So in that time, I would work half the year for the NFL as an animator. Okay. And then half the year I would do music videos and those kind of production. That was where my life was at that time. Mostly animated music videos, though, to be honest. And Paige was working for one of the people that a lot of this is based off of, and she called me one time and like told me how crazy it is, and like at the time, like I didn't even understand like what an assistant was. Like you hear about it, but I'm like, you like you do all that stuff for that person. Like, what's wrong with them? Why can't they do it for themselves? Like I just didn't understand why anybody would need that. But I get it now. But, like it makes more sense, but it's still a very weird world and a very strange world. And yeah, it was probably, I don't know, like 2013 or 2014, maybe. It was definitely a few years before it even had any sort of life. And she told me the story. I'm like, you should make that one day. And it kind of just would just come up every time we would talk. And then 'cause I was out in New York and I met a lot of really great people, parties and stuff. And those people actually ended up working for Shift, who was the Shift was the company that funded the grant.
Right.
So I had heard about, like, it was all just kind of perfect timing. As I met those people in New York, moved like 6 months later, saw what they were doing there. I'm like, that's really cool. That they're giving young filmmakers like an opportunity to make something, like whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
It was in the back of my mind. And then Paige was leaving her job, one of them, or at the time, and she was going to come work for me and my old business partner Marty, to help us with producing and bookkeeping and things like that for our music video company that we moved out to LA for.
Got it.
And kind of in that process, like it wasn't long after, like I almost feel like it was in like I say meeting, we were like sitting on beanbag chairs, like the meeting, like in that meeting where we're like, I need somebody I trust, and like let's hire you, Paige. And in that same talk, like she was talking about all of her like comedic ambitions and things like that, and I think Bad Assistant came up in there, and I know she had been working on the script, and then I think we worked together for like a year, and then it was it came up where like she's like, I have this script, I want to do it, and I'm like, these guys are doing this Shift thing, like
a grant, like they can fund it, right?
See if we can compare we can fund it and get make this thing a reality.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of those things too, where it was just like she had asked us to produce it at first, and to be honest, like I'm a music video director, still am, right? Like is what I would consider myself more than anything, commercial, right? But is doing anything narrative or even as a film was pretty intimidating to me, but definitely something that I've always been striving for. And she asked me, she's like, would you produce it? And I was like, yeah, I would definitely produce it, but like you'll get a lot more of like me and Simeon, like if I'm able to direct it. And she went and thought about it. We came together and we made the application for Shift together, where she took some of her work of her like sketches and some of my music videos that had a little more had a cinematic look to them, anything that was more narrative, as well as our producer Brendan and then our DP Justin. All four of us were on like that application to get it going in that first creative pitch to Shift. And it's like, so in a way it was like Paige had this great script with Rachel and then the connection to Jason, and then on the other end it was like I've been building this like technical side and production. It's like, here, like let's do this thing. And that was kind of how it went down. I
love that. Again, like I said, I think that's what anyone that's listening, especially any filmmakers, I would just encourage them to, again, like kind of follow the roads of collaboration, it feels like, from your story, or just, hearing the ways of it, partnering and working with people that kind of also are like in it for the same reason, and can work together, again, hopefully very seamlessly. So with that, I want to kind of get to like the on-set dynamic, because we've talked to Paige and Rachel again about the writing process, and like I said, you're dealing with a dynamic beyond just, okay, so first of all, you have a relationship with Paige, you've had one for now, it sounds like for years, you're going into directing this film that's her story, but like also like this layers of realness versus like what's real, what's not, and kind of dealing with that dynamic. And I'm so curious, as a director, can you just kind of talk us through leading that process, like leading that shoot, and you know, if you feel of anything funny stories or something comes up or anecdotes, would love to hear it. But I would just love to know kind of about what that experience was like on set for you as a director.
On set, yeah. I think, I think what you touched on as far as it being like such a personal story, based in somewhat of reality,
Right. No, I understand. It's just more like I of course keep bringing this up of like to people about these kind of layers to storytelling and what we pull from. But yes, just knowing that their dynamic on set isn't the normal, I would say, actor to actor, both hired for roles that auditioned. Like this was kind of coming together very comfortably.
Yeah. and yeah, I would like, so that being said, it's like, it was a very personal thing for Paige, so, and then also just like her bringing Jason to the table in that relationship. And I gotta credit, Brennan, who was our producer, and we were working together on a bunch of music videos at the time, is like, I really credit music videos. I know they get a bad name, but like, it was a little like, it was a very professional set, right? But it's a little bit of chaos, right? Is like with Paige and Jason's energy, like they know each other. There's no holding back there, right? And it's like we had a very ambitious shooting schedule. And I feel that music videos really, really did prepare me to like, all right, the process trailer isn't here. We're starting in the middle of the movie. We're like, what is, like, we had a whole plan of like where we want to start so that we know where we're going. And Jason and Paige, they're going to do their thing, and it's going to go in ways, and you got to condense it back together.
Right.
And we had to start in the middle of the movie because the cops for the process trailer didn't show up, because I don't know why. They didn't. And so we had to start like at a very weird spot. And for me, it was like, that being my very first like real narrative thing, and with Jason, and like, I'm like, I think we call cut. I think we move on. Like, I had no idea, like, just because like where we had to start too is like such a weird spot. But yeah, no, there was, there was a lot of improv back and forth between Jason and Paige. But that being said, like, it was all based in our script, and to like Jason's credit is, it was great as a director, but as an editor, it also made me go crazy. It was that like he would start one way on one take, and he would do this whole big improv in the middle, and then he would end with the line. So like somewhere in there you have your line, but then like the other take would be a whole different one. And so I definitely learned a lot there. And it's funny is I feel like when we finally had a rhythm, we were done. But I think that's just the nature of it, So
I was gonna say, yeah. How did you feel? Could you talk? You might have already touched on this, so feel free to be like, I kind of answered that, but I am curious about, as a director, maybe just like as a learning thing about like dealing with people that are very good at improv. Like where is it that you feel like you let the actors kind of, because that I think is a conversation a lot of filmmakers, especially in the directing chair, like would definitely be curious about as they're new to the industry, is like where you come in, like how much you guide an actor, how much you pull back, or your style perhaps, because I think every director is different. But I am kind of curious if you could delve in a little bit more about around those improv times, like how you kind of reeled it in, so to speak.
Yeah, no, and it was definitely a challenge, because in one regard, I'm not a writer, and I don't, and I didn't have like a huge background into like, hey, this is how this scene, like, I would like to, do this. And I had a few suggestions, but about things that I wish we could have done. But like, so staying really, really particular to what Paige and Rachel had written, it's like, I'm here to make it look pretty, to guide the actors and to hone in this thing, right? So there was moments like that where like I didn't touch it. And then so I'm like, I'm very precious on one hand of like, this is what it is, this is what we're doing. And then the other, like, all of a sudden, like take two on a scene, Jason and Paige would just start riffing. You're like, well, it's throw it out the window. Like, it's completely gone now. So,
yeah.
And like I hate to say this, but this is just all I know. It's like, it's just getting your coverage, and like, I was so like way down at first about like, I want this shot and like this super like cinematic, almost shooting like a drama. And then once I saw how they were working together, I was like, you just got to get your coverage so you can edit this thing later. And it's like, so I try to pick my moments of like, okay, this is a moving shot. And then it's like, this is like, we just got to let them do their thing and we'll find it, what it is later in the edit. Yeah, kind of, it was, and that's, and I go back to it again, is like, I definitely wouldn't have been ready without all the music video stuff. It's just like how a music video production day usually goes. Like, you never have enough money, you never have time, some sort of crazy talent that has some sort of thing. That's Jason was great, but it was just the nature of it all was challenging. And it would just kind of shift as we would go. I would try to pick my moments of like, this is that moving shot, and this is what's going to set that tone. And then others where it's like, let them do their thing and just lock off the camera. So
That is a bad business move.
Parker, you're a bad business move. Your life is a dumpster fire, and you wonder why no one sticks around.
You should go.
With all the coverage that you got, how do you then as a director kind of come in and go like, now let's take this and pare it down?
Yeah, well, okay. So in hindsight, I would have if I was doing a comedy again, I would do 2 cameras the whole time. We did 2 cameras for all the process trailer stuff in the car, and it was extremely helpful. Just being able to seam things together, to go from one improv line back to the script, back to an improv line. It made all things possible. There was even some cases where we were just running way too long on time, and to get from point A to point B with all these like great moments, there's actually like VFX scenes where an over the shoulder of Jason is from one take and Paige is saying something else, and then we've like, so they're VFX shots like pairing them together, and that was something that we were able to do with the 2 cameras and being locked off in a car, almost somewhat controlled environment. But yeah, no. So that was a big process there, and up until the very last like picture lock, Paige and I were changing, we're fully cutting scenes and bringing it back in, and it's like we had to get it to a spot and just to make it shorter and concise. And yeah, we kind of went through every scene as like, does this happen too fast? And really broke it all down. And also got everybody's opinion before we did picture lock. We had a meeting with, it was me, Paige, Brendan, and Justin. We all watched it one time, like probably like second to last cut, of just like, what do you like? What don't you like? Because Paige and I at that point were so in it, like we can't see it. And we took everybody's notes and went and made those final adjustments. But it was definitely a learning experience. Definitely. Yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of that learning experience, then, as don't want to take up too much of your time. I have just 2 last questions, which is, one is like, what advice would you give to someone, maybe thinking back to like, you've actually given some really good advice already, so I could like recap it for you. But is there anything else that you would like to say to anyone maybe doing their first short in narrative, doc, or music video, anything like that, any of these mediums that you work within?
Don't be afraid of whatever you're doing, but also respect it. There's like a fine line of like confidence and cockiness, I would say. Stick to your gut. Like, if you believe in something, like maybe fight for it, pick your battles. And as far as just the production goes, like, yeah, I think for me, it was like, I was so focused on, these shots that ended up they didn't happen because we needed to get our day. It's like, know when you can get your coverage and know when you can get your moments. And it's like, and be realistic about your day to give your actors time to play, and to find those moments, especially in anything comedic. Just looking back, like I would want way more time, with everything, just to really delve it out. And, but I think that's it as far as advice goes. Yeah.
It's all very good. All right. So finally, as I had told you earlier, but Argo is trying to build a platform for short filmmakers. And so we're just really curious, and it's more like a rapid fire question. You have to think too hard about it. But wanted to ask, what does short film mean to you?
Wow. Short film. Like I feel like making shorts is it's probably one of the most pure art forms of film out there. Because I think once you start getting in either features or commercials, there's always somebody else telling you what to do, right? Where with this thing, with this short, Shift gave us insane amount of freedom. Like they just let us do whatever we wanted, right? And this was Paige's idea. Paige put her trust in me to direct it, and very thankful for that entire process on both ends.
Yeah, I love that. Well, how lovely. Kyle, thank you so much for talking to us about Bad Assistant. I really appreciate it. Your experience and just kind of hearing, like I said, you gave a lot of good advice. I'm really excited for any filmmaker to watch this and hear about, again, what you might have as memories that maybe didn't work out. I will hopefully be helpful. And I think it's an experience a lot of filmmakers have. They just don't often talk about it. So I just really appreciate you sharing your knowledge and that journey with us. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.